I also thought like when I'm looking at all of like the prohibitions that religion and societies put on, I thought that like I would make a parody story about a society that decided that it was illegal to shit.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Because it's like all of these restrictions on sex, like humanity cannot exist
yeah.
without sex, but they make all these guilts and restrictions. What if you set up a system where you pretended like nobody was shitting? You know, because they're pretending like you're not even supposed to think about sex in certain religions. Like you're fucking out of your mind. There's no
Yeah.
chance.
Well, and I don't think that's so far fetched because we kind of do that. Is it illegal to shit? No. It's definitely illegal to shit like out in public, and you
True.
can't be seen shitting. That's illegal. That's indecent exposure. But the pretending element, like, man, do we pretend we don't shit? We go in, we close the door, we're concealed, then we flush it, then we come out, open the door, act like nothing ever happened. But I think to me, the real meaning I get from you bringing this up is that's a metaphor for how we are, like with our shadow selves, like our shitty human emotions,
Yeah.
like the ones that aren't happiness are the ones we typically treat like shit. We flush it down, we act like it's not there, and we come out all like
No,
manic.
that wasn't, I'm fine. All good.
Yeah, but like if you don't shit, you are so unhealthy. So I think, our even though it's disgusting, like it's so important for us. And I think if we embrace our shitty emotions, our
Hmm.
what we judge to be our flaws, we're much better off. It's like giving ourselves permission to have a bowel movement. It's like, wow, it actually feels good to let my being do what my being needs to do. And in this case, it's doo and all
Yeah,
that
for
it
sure.
metaphorically
For sure.
represents.
And this idea, I think Bertrand Russell was, talking about if all of a sudden we opened up the power to be able to read everybody's minds, everybody would lock themselves away because they'd be like, "Oh, the horror! People are monsters. I can't believe these people are thinking about it. Everybody I'm walking, they're just thinking about sex and all this, And then after a little while, they'd be like, "Ah, fuck it. They're just people," and we'd get used to it,
Yeah.
without all of this pretending and all of this nonsense, and we'd actually be better off for it. We would just change our barometer for what we counted as something negative, but instead
Yeah.
we're all putting out this false projection of who we are and what we think and what we're about.
Mm.
I mean, the human beings are savage. There's a savage part of us, and there's also a sentient, beautiful, conscious part of it.
Yeah.
And I think finding the balance of that's been a big part of my message. Is not to pretend that you're one or the other. Just reconcile all of it.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
and then you're like a solid person that if you shake, it doesn't go Jack in the Box, and you see one little thing pop out like "Wah!"
Oh, I agree 100%. And I personally think transparency is a very graceful virtue to have. And I think it's easier said than done because it's scary for us to be remotely honest with even things that we don't want to be honest with ourselves about. But for us to say, like, yeah, this is me. Like, now you see who I really am. And I believe a lot of people, especially the one named JP, has this program that says you could never love me if you knew who I really was.
Right.
You can love me if I'm being the person who I think I need to be for you in order to meet your expectations, then I'm lovable. I'm earning it. But I think when we do the math, wow, if it's love that I'm earning, it's not really love. It's maybe approval, which is a really shitty currency. But I think when we can get to a place where we're transparent and then we see other people who are like-minded or maybe even better, like-hearted people, they become transparent. And maybe they're willing because we're owning the space. We're representing, like, I am worth transparency. So other people show up who will vibrate at the same frequency, if you will. And then we see, oh, wow, you're not perfect either. And like you think disgusting things and you have low self worth aspects of you too. I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
What a relief. I guess it's okay for me to be a human, not to be a perfect human, not to be a human meeting expectations. Because that's not a human to me. To me, that's just a facade. But there's so much grace when we can become transparent and meet this self permission that says, yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay for me to be
It's really
human.
unless you really are able to see someone and be seen, that love is not really fully there. You know what I mean? Like, you won't fully receive love if you haven't shown the person your true self, because
Yeah.
they will be loving the projection that you have, and you'll know that, you'll feel it. No matter if you're incredibly successful, that's why the seducers are always empty, right?
Mm.
You're in seduction, you're trying to paint a picture that someone is falling in love with. They're falling in love with this picture you're painting.
Yeah.
But the love is going to remain at the picture. It's not going to follow all the way back to your heart because it's not
Yeah.
authentic. So you'll never feel it. So you'll always be empty. You know, it's like eating these calories that are never reaching your stomach. You're generating all of this love, but it's never finding its way to your true self. It's all getting trapped in your projection.
For sure. It's like you don't present the surface area of yourself for the other
Yeah.
person to connect to. So, of course, they can't love you
Yeah.
because you're not allowing them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so scary because what happens, because like, I'll just interrupt myself, which is very rude of me to do to myself. I kind of resent myself at this point. What the hell's wrong with me? But to me, the scary part of it is it like when we risk being ourselves, we have no guarantees that a person's going to acknowledge us and value us. And, I don't think we really can value other people any more than we value ourselves. So let's just say
Mhm.
we're with someone who's in our life and they don't value themselves very much. So when we show them our real self, like, okay, maybe they're not going to value it, but we make that all about us. Cause I think at some level
We take it personal as fuck.
we're all narcissists for sure.
Yeah.
And it that too is okay. But that's scary because it's like, wow, maybe you didn't overtly reject me, but you were indifferent to this deeper part of me. And that hurts. And just like you say, we make it all about us. So to me, the idea of like be unapologetically true to yourself it's a beautiful North Star. And I don't like to falsely glorify it because it's so easy to say and
Yeah.
so glorious on paper. And it's so fiery and tumultuous to actually embody.
Yeah, you are putting yourself in the fire, but it's the only chance you actually have of receiving love, right? Like, you think, like, what if they don't love me? What if I show them my true self and they don't love me? Well, at least you're in the arena, because then it's
Yeah.
actual love. If you show your true self and that true self is love, then you're going to feel the love. The other way, you're just guaranteeing a loss.
For
You're
sure.
guaranteeing some comfortable, placating loss where they're going to love some projection of you. Yippee. Like, that's not going to ever feel like it. So
Yeah.
fucking just take the risk, have the courage
For
to just
sure.
go put yourself out there. And if it doesn't work out, all right, it didn't work out. Again,
Yeah.
just don't take it personal. That's their story. That's their whatever clouds were in their sky that prevented them from seeing, what you were presenting. That's not your responsibility.
Yeah.
Just be yourself and let the chips fall where they may. Again, one of the hardest things to do, because
Yeah.
that, when people have that instinct of, when they do that, they're vulnerable, because then also, like, if someone doesn't like, let's look at the converse. If someone doesn't like your projection, you can basically just be like, oh, that wasn't me anyways.
For sure.
That
It's
wasn't
so
me anyways.
safe.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, they just rejected my avatar. They didn't reject me. They didn't
For
show them
sure.
me. So all good here. I can change that. I can crumple that avatar up. I can throw that one away. I can make a new one,
Yeah.
but you can't do that with your true self,
No.
so that's where people get scared.
Absolutely. And you use the word guarantee. If we don't show our real self, we're guaranteed not to get their love. And to me, that guarantee, it feels so safe to the ego. Like,
Yeah.
it's certain we're not going to get their love. So we don't have to have the anxiety of the mystery. Will they see the real me that shows up in the arena or not? It's a guarantee.
Yeah.
And from my ego's perspective, it says, I love certainty. Like, that'll make me feel like I'm in control. It'll probably also feel super freaking familiar. But I think, someone along the way said curiosity kills the cat. Like, fuck that. I think certainty kills the cat.
Yeah.
I think curiosity enlivens the hell out of the cat's spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally believe in my delusional way of believing things. And I actually believe this belief. So I guess I'm dogmatic about it. But I believe we have to be willing to scare ourselves to death in order to actually live our life and discover this miracle that we really are, which I think is largely a mystery. I think who we are is bigger than our comprehension of who we think we are. I think it's way bigger than even the altruistic sense of who we want to be. So for me, if we can become the curious cat-like warrior who says, yeah, guarantees, certainty, that feels like death.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it feels like I'm saving my life because it feels safe. I don't feel scared when things are certain. But when I'm willing to shatter that shell of certainty and step curiously into the mystery of who I am, the mystery of new experiences, but somehow go through the metaphoric dark woods that's always in front of me, I think that's when we stand a chance of having more meaning in our lives.
That's the hero's journey.
For
That's
sure.
the fucking hero's journey. Like, if you're going to show up as a hero, you have to step into uncertainty. You know, you have to jump off where it's mostly faith and a little bit of evidence. Like, you
Yeah.
have to be willing to take those leaps and move from those cozy shores of your victim story and your helplessness and your safe little net, and just go out and sail those stormy seas. Realize you're going to get batted around. You'll run into the classic, elements of the Odyssey, the sirens that call you in, the rock and the hard place, the Scylla and Charybdis of life. You'll have to navigate that. And through the other side, no matter what happens, you'll be tempering your spirit. You'll be having an adventure. Like, that's the fucking thing. That's the game. That's the magic of what this thing is about. I never struggle with that. Oh, why life? What's the point? What's the point? It's the fucking most amazing journey you could have. Yeah, sometimes it sucks, but sometimes it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I can have coffee, sex, and a cheeseburger in the same hour. What the fuck? What do you mean, what the point? Those are amazing. Are you kidding me? Like, that's like the greatest gift of all time. But you just have to be able to play and navigate and just take your lumps, and don't, like you said, don't hold on to these things. Don't follow the illusion of certainty and control and safety and helplessness and all of these things that are pandered to you.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about your message, and like it shined through in what you just said, like that's embodied passion coming out. You are not an intellectual, and that's not a passive aggressive way of saying you're stupid, Aubrey. Like, you're really, no, you're a very bright guy, but you're way more than just your bright intellect. You embody your message, which I really, so it's like, go out and have these experiences rather than just sit here and intellectually think, well, life is purposeful in so many ways. It's like, dude, you're always out taking risks. And I would guess that's one of the things that makes so many people want to connect with you. It's like, wow, he's modeling something I either really value that I do in myself, or he inspires me to do something that I, in a deep way, know I need to do for myself.
Well, it's how I build. I appreciate that. And it's how I build the model, though. I build the model by putting myself through it. And that's how I prove the initial case. Like, all of this philosophy, if I can't experientially touch it, it doesn't really make sense to me. Even the whole spiritual framework that I have, it's been supported by other books I've read, but I've gained it by pushing myself, particularly through the plant medicine path, and like trying these things out, feeling what I feel, going through these emotions and challenges and truths, and then coming out the other side with something that I can then bolster with other theories and draw in. But I have to feel it if I'm going to express it. And I think that is maybe a connection that some people are missing. They like to leave it in the playground, in the sandbox, but not actually put themselves out there and do it. But that's where the magic is. That's where you really learn, because I've had to crumple a bunch of different thoughts and theories. Like, oh yeah, I had this great idea, and then I tried it and it was bullshit.
For sure. Yeah, I think there's so much what someone calls spiritual bypassing, but spiritual bypassing is kind of like a narrow term. I think there's so much bypassing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been so much in my life. So I've learned to recognize it, where we're looking to bypass the discomfort, come across as though we're as close to doing the real thing as possible without feeling the real heat of the fire of the hero's journey. And to me, one of the biggest things that a lot of us, and myself at times, probably more times than I want to admit, are trying to avoid is the fire of our own emotions.
Sure.
And
our own self-judgment.
Man, for sure. How we punish ourselves, shame ourselves, old wounds we carry. And to me, that's really where the juice is. That's not to say it feels good. Like, no, it feels like crap. But there's a Carl Jung quote that I absolutely love. He allegedly said, "Our feelings are the language of our soul." And if that's half true, then to me that implies our soul speaks such a wise language. It transcends English.
Mm-hmm.
It transcends the spoken word. It has to be transmitted through this high vibrational language called feeling. So I think when we're willing to be engaged in our feelings, our bodies, what are we sensing, both emotionally, but also primal body sensations? What if that's us connecting very directly to our soul? And like when we have our experiences, we go out, try something new, and failure is a guarantee. If we never failure, it means we're probably not taking enough risk. So I think when we experience those like uncomfortable failures, the self-judgment, man, that's the fire. That's the fire
Yeah.
burning away who we're not. So the miracle of who we really are can better arise and show the fuck up in our lives. I think that's the phoenix rising experience that we give ourselves when we're willing to embody the message, of the hero's journey,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just talking about it and going through some of the motions that feel safe.
It's the classic Stoic philosophy. The obstacle is the way. You know,
Mhm.
like you think, oh, let's avoid all of the feelings. You know, it comes up a lot when, I'm talking because, I've kind of pioneered an open relationship container with my fiance, Whitney. And it comes up a lot when we talk about feelings like jealousy, right? And so much of a normal relationship is ignoring, pretending, escaping, trying to figure out how to get around this demon that's internally made, and sometimes has good evidence and sometimes has absolutely no evidence, but it's a monster that you're constantly facing. Well, the way to do that is not to skirt it and escape from it and run around. It's just go straight through, and that's the path that I've taken. Like, go straight through the other side. Like, put yourself square face to face with it and figure out what you're going to do then, because it's a way different fucking ball game when it's so strong and overwhelming that every second that you're moving around you want to vomit. And that was the first time, like the first time Whitney took a lover, like I spent the entire day, every time I would think about any act, it would be like my body would stop where I was. I would almost have to take a knee and start retching. Like literally retching. And then like I thought think I would be okay. I'd be like, okay. And then like doggy style would flash in my head. And then it was like, ugh! Again, it would be like retching, vomit, right? And then you scramble, like you're in a fight. It's like a video game, like you're in God of War and you're this little guy and jealousy is Zeus. And you're like, how the fuck am I going to beat jealousy? The minute he looks at me, I'm down taking a knee and I'm ready to vomit. Well, you adapt. You start to figure out, all right, what's going to work? Is it maybe you can build your ego up, and I'll build myself and I'll be as big as Zeus, and my ego will be as big as Zeus, and I'll show him how strong I am. No, you're never going to be as big as Zeus, right? So then you find the other path, which is always tending to be surrendering your control and just realizing like, okay, that's the feeling that I'm feeling, but maybe there's a different way to feel. Maybe there's a way to see her as me living a different life, see her lover as me living a different life, see pleasure being transferred, and see that as being a good thing. Why should someone else's love or love in general, which is not in scarcity, why should that cause pain? And then start focusing on the consciousness and the surrender and the letting go. And then through that, this monster you've been avoiding for so long becomes your greatest teacher. And that's one of the, strongest kind of metaphors for me is like this thing that was a beast and is a beast in all of our lives can be like the wisest mentor you've ever had if you're willing to put yourself through it. And I'm not saying like everybody go out and do this. It's a beast to do. And it's not like I'm advocating this for everybody, but anything can be your mentor if you're willing to put yourself in the fire and learn from it.
Yeah, and man, the mentor of an open relationship.
Fuck.
Yeah, like I feel like I wanted to throw up hearing you talk about it. And I'm not involved with Whitney at all. She's wonderful. I met her, but it's like, ooh, doggy style.
Have we revealed the truth?
I wanted to talk to you about something. But I'm curious. So roughly, welcome to my show, Aubrey. I'm so happy to have you. Roughly, how long ago did you guys start the open part of the relationship?
That's about 3 years ago.
So let's just say 3 years ago, the jealousy, the doggy
Yeah.
style flashing in your mind.
Yeah.
If that was like a 10 intensity, like 0 to 10, like what is it present day 3 years later?
Man, it's like a 1, but occasional spikes, like
Yeah.
occasional like EKG blips. where I'll
Like your
get
heart
a little,
stops.
yeah, like a little, brrrp, and then but the pathways to access the consciousness that allows you, because there's only one way through it, and that's above it.
Yeah.
That's like, again, like Einstein said, you can't solve a problem on the same level in which it was created. Like, you can't solve these attacks of the ego identifying as ego. Like, you have to ascend to your conscious self, and then as consciousness, as the observer of the ego, as the force that's animating life, then you can make the move. So it's just a quicker journey out of the ego and out of my identity and attachments and all those. It's a much quicker move now, but you'll still get the blip that'll force me to like, whew, okay, well, I got to do that. But it happens wicked fast. So maybe it'll blip to, it's not full take a knee nausea, but it'll blip to 7 or 6 still. And but then right again, back down to baseline 1, 2, somewhere in that low range, which is cool.
Yeah. And I'm curious because I hear a lot of people, not a lot, but definitely people talk about open relationships. And I just, personally with me and my girl, like that's not our thing at all. That's not our calling. We find other ways to take a knee, the knee of fire, if you will.
Sure.
So I hear a lot of people call their relationships open, but they can be very different. So like some of the open relationships that I hear described are called open, but they're very closed and secretive. And I'm curious, like, do you guys have an open policy? Like we talk about everything, or we kind of do what we want to do, but don't necessarily bring it up. Kind of don't ask, don't tell.
I mean, again, we tend to embrace the fire. Like, we don't need specifics. Like, well, how long was it? Well, how big was it?
Yeah, and then
like
the cum shot climax.
Yeah. Where did he finish? Like, that's not the question that we're asking. There's privacy of the moment between two people, but other than that, there's nothing else that we hide, whether emotions are building or what thoughts are there, what's, how we're feeling. I think that for us is the way, is to really put ourselves in that situation. And because then you have this perfect honesty. And that's the real blessing of all this, is that there's absolutely nothing hidden from your partner. And then that becomes, again, just back to bring this full circle back to what we're talking about, complete transparency. She sees every part of me, my desires, my actions. She permits and encourages and allows the freedom, and I do the same. So we're really fully supporting all elements of each other, from the beautiful sentient part to the, hairy asshole part, that grimy animal beast self, loving all aspects and saying like, hey, I see you, all of it, and I love you. And, I hold no record of wrong. Like, whatever makes you happy makes me happy. And that's the ideal that we're trying to follow. And that's the guide star. That's what gets you through these dark moments where, you're at an 8 or a 10 of suffering for sometimes days or weeks, or, sometimes you bury it. And then it forms this little cancerous resentment monster that manifests in other things that you think you've dealt with, but you haven't dealt with it. And then your actions start getting a little funny, and then you're no longer grateful for the things that your partner is doing. And then things get weird because you haven't really acknowledged, like, oh, wait, I was still feeling some things and I was just pretending that I wasn't feeling those things. So it's a fucking powerful, powerful teacher. And again, this is not me advocating it, but for me, this is the only path that I could possibly undertake and still be able to breathe and feel like love was actually, transferring between us, because it's complete transparency. It's really seeing each other.
Yeah, I love that. And to me, one of the morals of your story that I'm taking away is like your message, as you mentioned, like you're not advocating an open relationship is for everybody, but to me, a universal message within your message is open your relationship in a way that creates more connection.
Totally.
Whether that's other lovers or like, we need to be more open and communicate more honestly our emotions. Like if I'm angry at you, like, let's talk about that instead of me concealing it And then 7 fucking years later, I'm just a resentful bastard because I'm burying all these emotions that I don't feel like there's a safe space to let them out. So it's a very closed, concealed
Yeah,
kind of thing. So to me, like, yeah, we need more openness that creates connection. And that's where like communion happens.
totally.
And some would say the purpose of a relationship is connection rather than just reaffirming patterns of disconnection over and over again while we tolerate each other
hmm
for the till death do us part.
Yeah, and desires too. Like when did that become something that's we're not supposed to have? When did that become taboo or forbidden? You can set whatever rules you want as far as actions, but to be honest about your desires, like if your partner is really into transvestites, like you better know that and
Sure.
still love them, because if you don't, then there's actually a story about this. Like recently, one of my buddies, the girl that he's dating was married for like 7 years, found out that her husband was mad for transvestites and was like having sex with transvestite prostitutes constantly, looking at transvestite porn. And it's obviously completely devastating. It's like,
Yeah.
I didn't even fucking know you. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
these things that we have, like if that's going to be your real partner and you're really going to feel love, like whatever weird thing it is, like let it out in the open. And then
For
the partner
sure.
just, receive that without judgment, your own perceptions about what it is,
Yeah.
see where that's coming from. And then at that point you can say, look, man, I respect that you opened up about that. It's not going to work for me. I can't,
Yeah.
I can't be with someone who's also seeing transvestite prostitutes, but thank you for opening up.
Like regular prostitutes, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But apparently not.
Yeah, but then at least it's real. And then because
sure.
you can't hide it forever. You can't pretend indefinitely. You got to like let out the truth.
Man, yeah, otherwise to me it's a big control mechanism. Let me try to control you and manipulate how you feel about me and keep you in my life by controlling you by modulating what I don't tell you about me.
Yeah,
Because
it's black magic.
absolutely. And the reality is like not everybody's going to be able to hold the perfect space for us. Like you said, wow, okay. Transvestite prostitutes. I don't have the courage to be
Yeah.
with that all
Yeah.
the time. And that's like short-term pain. The relationship ends. We've all been through relationship. Even the relationships that need to end are painful to end.
Yeah.
I mean, it's breaking a pattern of familiarity and, uncomfortable comfort. Yet that short-term discomfort, how much freedom and pleasure does that create long-term if we're able to have a tough conversation in the short term? It's like, wow, we had a couple trees burned down
Mhm.
instead of the whole forest progressively over 10 years.
And the pain, so much of the pain happens when you get these people traveling on two different paths and the secrecy builds. Because then
Yeah.
that's when the betrayal builds. Like if you start off honest and you keep honest the whole way, you should be kind of knowing where this thing's going. If you're both able to like look into each other's heart constantly and see the truth, like it's not going to be like all of a sudden that person's going to run in like, hey, this isn't working out.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean it's not working out? Everything seemed great because one person was pretending that everything was good, right?
Yeah.
But if you really just keep it 100 the whole way through, then there's not going to be that surprise, shocking betrayal moment. What do you mean? How could this be? How come you didn't tell me what? Like this shit that makes it really painful where it's like surprise and all of a sudden everything's good, abrupt, stop, and never see that person again. Like
Yeah.
that sucks. But if you can stay honest the whole way through, then I think you can avoid a lot of that. And maybe even if you guys transition on, like one of my best friends in the world is my ex-fiance, Caitlin. And we had a little bit of that, we had that abrupt thing, but we had enough truth that we've been able to come back and stay really close friends, which is breaking a traditional model of like, once you break up with someone you've had sex with, you can never be friends with them again.
We have to pretend like we hate each other in
Yeah,
order
exactly.
to justify the breakup.
It's just nonsense, but like riding the truth the whole way, it rewrites the whole rule system that you have. And I think that's the real lesson of this. It's not what you do with your bodies. Like that's the easy part.
Yeah.
We have good, frontal cortex that can restrict us from indulging in the pleasure. Like I would stop at In-N-Out or P. Terry's every single day if I didn't have like that part of my brain. Like we can stop ourselves from doing that.
Yeah.
But if I couldn't tell, if I couldn't tell Whitney that I secretly love cheeseburgers,
Yeah.
I would be fucked, right?
And she's sitting behind you and she looks like she's ready to walk out now that you just said you love cheeseburgers. Just saying, but keep your eyes on me, Aubrey. So
Yeah, okay.
I want you to avoid this pain.
And then imagine like going by a cheeseburger place and be like, don't look at the cheeseburgers, don't look at the cheeseburger,
Yeah,
don't look at
for
the cheeseburger.
sure.
And knowing if you did, like, did you look at that fucking cheeseburger? You fucking looked at that cheeseburger. And then you're off to the races. 3-hour fight. Maybe it's 3 days, maybe it's 3 weeks going after it. You fucking looked at that cheeseburger, didn't you?
Man, speaking of cheeseburgers, my lovely lady Amber, man, she's so, my heart just lights up for her. She's a vegan, has been for 8 or 9 years. I like how you're already laughing. And I am,
I'm just laughing because I've used cheeseburger like 14 times in my analogies today.
Thus we're at veganism.
Yeah.
And I eat a hardcore vegan diet myself and simultaneously eat a meat eater diet because I don't think they need to be mutually exclusive. But a lot of, and Amber is so loving and accepting of me. And honestly, I have the courage to give myself to her. I have the courage to let me be received by her and receive her. So it's very interesting how a lot of people, they'll, maybe comment online like, oh, wow, she's a vegan and you eat meat, JP. Like, how do you guys get along?
Yeah.
And then sometimes like I'll see people comment on a post of hers or a video and say like, Amber, you should be with a guy who's a vegan. And
whoa.
That is a
so
whoa.
funny how it's transcended a diet choice, right?
Well,
It's like an identity piece.
And to me, it's not about the diet. It's just people being blocked out of their heart. So I think we have this weird hypnotic trance we're under that says we can only accept people that we agree with.
Yeah.
And that is not acceptance. That's agreement. It's like an agreement-based relationship, which is based out of our fucking heads, not our hearts. But to me, real acceptance and connection comes when we can especially accept people when they think differently than us.
Totally.
When we can accept people, even though we disagree with their values, and not even have the hidden agenda of like, I'm going to accept you, get you into my life so that I can change your mind. But no, like I look at Amber, like, you're a vegan and awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have different ideas of what will feed our bodies well, like very different ideas, yet we accept each other. And to me, the courageous place to be is in a like-hearted relationship. I think, an intimate lover and even like friends. I think this whole thing about like-minded relationships is just a recipe for comfort. Like, let me surround myself with people who just agree with me. So we can sit around, agree with each other all day, and we won't fucking grow. Because I think it takes challenge, it takes friction in order to grow. So to live from our fucking hearts, the question that I want to ask myself every day is, can I accept even that which I disagree with? Can I accept you even though we don't agree about all things? And if so, like, wonderful. We'll be wonderfully connected, even though our trajectories might be different. We're still like connected at the heart. And man, I feel like I'm on a soapbox right now.
Well, I love hearing what you're saying. I can't agree more. I think the other thing is like, let's stop focusing on these pieces of our identity and focus on what we really are, which is our consciousness, like who we really are, like vegan, German, American. It reminds me of that, in the World War, I think World War I, where at Christmas they started kicking a soccer ball around between each other, right? And the Allies and the Axis forces, Americans and Germans, they played a game of soccer and they realized like, oh shit, these are just 18, 19, 20-year-old dudes just like me. They have a different flag and they like soccer. And it's like, this is fucked, and they didn't want to shoot each other after that. Like commanding officers literally had to threaten them, as the story goes, like threaten them with their pistols to get back in there and start firing guns at each other. They're like, man, it's the same dude. That's the same dude as me, just in a different country. Like, but instead, even so, we don't have that kind of, we do still have that war thing. It doesn't affect most of us, but we still have these ideas about them as this other thing and us as this thing, but we do it not so much in that grand military contest, but in things like veganism or in things like even still in race and privilege and all of these things. These are these identity tags that we start categorizing people by identity tags, whatever that is, when that's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. We're really humans, different facets of this same diamond called humanity, which is also part of the same diamond called life itself, which is also part of the same diamond called the fucking universe, God, and all existence. That oneness that we try to carve out and create additional separateness, that's bullshit, and it's fucked up, and it's the fundamental reason why we have so much conflict, the fundamental reason why we can do something fucked up to somebody. If you really see that person as you living a different life, you're not going to be able to justify doing something fucked up to them. But if that's someone different or lesser, it's this initial kind of sociopathic kind of idea, like, oh, well, they're that category, so I judge them as that identity, and so they're not that. And if they are that identity, identities are bullshit and not real anyway, so you can do something to an identity, but to do something to a person, that's a different story, because a person is the same as you.
For sure.
And I think that's where we get so fucked up, is we start looking at these belief projections, these identities, rather than, oh no, that's me that I'm doing this to.
For sure. And to me, the recipe for an empty feeling life is think you are, identify with something that you're not. It's like, okay, now the purpose of your life isn't to live your life. It's to pretend that you're something, you identify with veganism or meat eater or Christian. You identify with, those are all different religions, by the way. You identify with something that you comprehend. And I think that's very appealing to our egos. The ego looks at the incomprehensible mystery that we really are and says, fuck that. I can't comprehend it. So let me pretend I'm something so small because I can comprehend that. I'll be vegan. I'll be Christian. I'll be paleo. And man, talk about violating the purpose of our life, which I don't know what the purpose of our life is. But if I was pretending to know what the purpose of our life is, I would guess it would have something to do with being ourselves. Not
for sure.
Not being something else we're identified with that we're not. But I think we're always bigger than whatever it is we identify with. And I think language is so powerful, especially when we pay attention to it. When we listen to the words that follow my, anytime we say my, I dare say we're revealing something that we think we are. Like, this is my water. Like, after the sound it's I. This is I water. It's like the caveman speak. I water. I meat eater. I Muslim. I Christian. And it's just like this. Wow, we think we're all these things that we're not.
Yeah,
and that is
what's appealing, because it allows, when you identify as that, it allows you to do the ego's favorite trick, which is to shit on other people. Right. And to differentiate and prove that you're superior, like, I'm vegan, so everybody who's not is lesser than me. So fuck off. I'm meat eater. I'm paleo. I'm ancestral. Look at all these modern humans who've lost touch with their ancestral roots. Like, it just allows you to shit on people. It becomes no longer like a choice. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Do things that the old humans used to do, or, oh yeah, maybe we're eating too many fucking processed meats and shit. And maybe the way that animals treated is bullshit.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make some choices. It's not that. It's like, I'm this and you're not. So fuck you. You know what I mean? And that's the game that we constantly get trapped in. The ego, it's not real. So it justifies itself by ranking itself amongst other non-real things, other non-identities. And that's the game. Elevate this non-real thing to above the other non-real things. And that's the whole game that we get wrapped up in playing.
Yeah. So on that note, if I were going to confessional right now, Aubrey, you're not a priest, are you?
No.
Okay, that's why I feel so unviolated right now, probably.
Well, I mean, I may violate you, but I'm not a priest.
But it won't be under the guise of Catholicism.
Yeah, totally.
And by the way, all you Catholics, I realize you feel a burning sensation in your bodies right now. You're offended. I just want you to know that whatever emotions you're feeling right now, they're my fault. It's not that your body's generating them. It's not that you feel insecure about something to do with what you're identified with. It's my fault. So nonetheless, if I were in confessional right now, Aubrey, I would say, like, I have an ego, and I pretend I don't have an ego.
Sure.
I just pretend it's me. But nonetheless, my ego has this insatiable, needy fucking need, just to use the word need like twice in one sentence. That's how big of a vocabulary I
Emphasis.
have. So I have this needy fucking ego that has this insatiable need to feel significant.
Mm.
And most of the time, I'm not honest with it. Most of the time, I pretend like I'm doing something else. I misdirect this huge energy that just wants to beg the world to tell me I'm significant. But I won't reveal that in a straightforward way because that feels too vulnerable. So instead, I'll hide it, I'll misdirect it. And that causes destruction, usually.
Mhm.
But that's really coming from this part of me that just wants to feel significant, wants to be more than what I think I am. And in a way, I think that's an appropriate desire because maybe who I really am is more than I think I am. But the way to go about discovering the more that I am, the more that we all are, isn't through shitting on other people.
Right.
It's maybe surrendering control and like bowing down in humbleness and dipping our heads into the river of discovery of like, okay, I've learned who I'm not. Like whoever I think I am is who I'm not. Now I can be open to maybe learn and self realize who I am rather than trying to define it and make it happen. So that would be my ego going to confessional
Yeah. No,
to hopefully lift the burden of having all this misdirected bullshit of trying to be significant shit on other people that just creates more disconnection within self, I think, and other people.
yeah. The ego, and I've started using the word identity because I think it's a little easier for people to wrap their heads
Yeah,
around. Like your identity, it thrives on the delusion that it's not enough, right? Like it has to have that as a core delusion because it's always striving for more. Like you said, it just wants significance. It wants to be real. It's like Pinocchio that wants to be a real boy, and it thinks if it's significant enough, it's going to make it more real. If more people believe in it, belief being the force that empowers the realness. The more you believe in it, the more other people believe in it, the more it becomes a real boy. And the more it can rise itself up there, that's the game it's playing. But it's essentially, fueled by the delusion that you, the true you, is not enough. And that's something that when you realize, like, oh, I am enough just for me, not because of what I created or because of the things that I've done, which, as you get in a position, even like I'm in, a lot of the growth of on it is, and a lot of the challenges of it is, I have more things to attach my identity to. And so it feels more threatening to lose it.
I bet.
And so it's like, oh man, if I lost on it, it's like losing a piece of me. No, it's not. I love this fucking place. I put my heart into it, but this is a thing. I'm me. It doesn't make me less, or it doesn't, take the essential me and make me worthless if on it fails or if I
Yeah.
fail. I'm enough. It just being me. And the rest is just, the creation that we're trying to do, this movement that we're trying to create, these sandcastles that we're building,
Yeah.
which should be fun, but it becomes not fun when you identify. It becomes when you make your identity, your creations part of you, then you defend them as if they're life or death. And then you
For
attach
sure.
life and death emotions, the same stress that you would attach if a saber-toothed fucking cat was trying to bite your neck, is the same thing you would look at as if someone is trying to sue your company. You know what I mean? And it's possible to still, it's actually better when you play the game without that stress because you don't make good decisions over sustained weeks of pressure and stress and anxiety.
Man.
You make the best decisions when you're like a world champion fighter, light in the moment
Yeah.
with a little smile and relaxed and ability to improvise and almost dance through this thing instead of biting your teeth and just grinding and
For sure.
that's not how the best performances are. They seem effortless. And it's the same with life. And the key to that is just realizing I'm enough and these things are fun. They may come, they may go.
Yeah.
I'll put my heart and my passion into it, but all good.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if the reason why a lot of people don't allow themselves to quote unquote do big things, start the business, just whatever it is because there's the fear of, okay, I'll start the business. It'd be scary as shit if it just failed and didn't get off the ground. But even scarier is the business really succeeds. And then we inherently know, like, yeah, I'm a fucked up human. So of course I'm going to identify with that. I'll think that business is
Sure.
me. And then we all know, like, no business lasts forever.
And then
Like
it fails.
nature will erode everything. Eventually the business in one way or another will not be yours anymore.
The tide comes for all your fucking sandcastles. You just have to, you just have to realize, like, build it
Yeah.
up as big as you want. The tide's going to come.
I was having coffee with a friend this morning, and he recently just sold a business. He had cashed out like a really great lucrative exit, and he's been telling me the past couple of weeks like the challenge of that, because he just had the death of who he thought he was.
Right.
So like there's this great celebration, like, man, look at all this cash. Like this went well. You couldn't have scripted it better. Business built, sold, perfect. And he's suffering the loss of identity. So I think a lot of people kind of get into the mindset of preventative medicine. Let me just self-sabotage so the business never gets built, so I don't have to go through the grief of losing my sense of who I am, whether it's like I cash out or it builds and then it fails or whatever it might be. So I think a willingness to, like you said, realize that's not who I am. And then also a willingness to realize, but a part of me is going to think it is
Yeah.
me. So
yeah,
I
forgive the human part of it.
For sure.
Don't hold yourself to a standard of, I heard JP and Aubrey talking about ego. I'm not going to have any.
which is so egotistical.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like we all, me, you, everybody, we all fucking struggle with the same shit. We all get lost in the
Yeah.
forest of delusions. We all fuck up, do stupid stuff. Like, I knew that 20 years ago and I still
For
didn't
sure.
fucking figure it out. Like, but that's human. That's just remembering and forgetting this game that we're constantly playing.
For sure.
But the prophylactic, like the preventative actions towards pain are one of the biggest limiting factors. Because it not only happens in business, you're fucking spot on with that. Happens in love too.
Oh,
like people
man.
not willing to take a risk because they might get rejected.
Yeah.
So it's like they'll pretend like, oh, no one's appealing to me, and blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
really, they just don't want to put themselves out there because they're afraid of getting attached. Having something that's really meaningful to them, and then losing it.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You're again back to guaranteeing a loss. Here we go again. I'm going to lock in this loss. I'm
For
going to lock
sure.
in this shit sandwich because at least it's a sandwich. You know what I mean? Rather than
At least it's a sandwich.
rather than just being like, all right, maybe a shit sandwich, but maybe it's the fucking
Yeah.
buffet. Like, let's give it a go. Let's roll the dice.
Absolutely.
Pow.
I've been in past relationships, and I have friends who are married, and they'll literally say, like, I don't like my wife. I do not like my wife. And I'm reading them and I'm like, I bet you wish she would die. But that's the plain and safe thing. Like, when their wife inevitably is eroded through the sands of time, however it happens, it's like, okay, they're protected because they're not deeply connected.
Sure.
They don't deeply care. And I can genuinely say, my lady is the love of my life. If she were to, God forbid, something happened to her tomorrow, or she said, JP, I'm done with you. Like, man, I would feel like I'm falling apart for a long time.
Sure.
I would have so much grief, and at least I risked living something real rather than this shallow, so let me be with a woman who I don't even care about, so I won't really give too much of a shit if and when she leaves me, or if and when she dies.
Yeah.
But I think we deserve better than that. I think the quality of our life is very directly proportional to our willingness to take risk and encounter uncomfortability.
Yeah. And part of this thing that we're trying to cling for is this idea of eternity, as if time doesn't exist. It's going to be forever. It ain't going to be forever.
That's control drama.
Yeah,
right
that's
there.
such a control drama. And one of the beautiful things, to quote the movie Troy,
As you do.
But when Brad Pitt's character, who's Achilles, was explaining to his chick, I forget her name, but he was like, let me tell you a secret. The gods envy us because we're mortal.
Yeah.
And that idea that what makes things so beautiful is because they're not going to last. It's the same metaphor that the samurai had with the cherry blossom tree. Like, it blossoms only for a few days. And that's what makes it beautiful. If that
Yeah.
cherry blossom tree blossomed for the whole fucking year, it'd be like, oh yeah, there's the tree.
Eventually it'd be an eyesore. Like, let's cut that tree down.
Yeah, totally.
But what I hear you say is like, we value preciousness, rarity. We value impermanence, and it's scary
Yeah.
because it will be lost.
Yeah. And yet we struggle for permanence as if time won't rip anything we're grabbing, like fingernails stuck into it. The harder we hold on to it, just let it go, man. We're all going to die. Guess what? We're all going to die. Like the king and the pawn and everybody all goes in the same box. That's the Italian proverb, right? It doesn't matter everybody's dying, that's it. And then, so let's just enjoy it, let it pass, enjoy the phases of life too. Like so many people cling to these phases, and it's something I see. It's, I think, sad that happens particularly with women, is we've idolized this youthful beauty model rather than appreciating all of the different stages of maturation, which each have their own inherent beautiful magic. So everybody's just clinging to try to look like they were when they were 21 years old. Well, that's no way to go, because time is pushing you the other way. So you're fighting this constant losing battle that at some point you're going to have to reconcile. I'm not saying, give it all up, don't work out and do the things, but let it go. Like, appreciate every stage that you're in. And men, it's not like we're different. We do the same thing, like fucking hair transplants and all of the different procedures we do to keep our virility in our youth. Like, yeah, that's fine. Like, enjoy that. Enjoy all that, but just make sure it's fun, and make sure you're not obsessed with it, and make sure that you're realizing that you're all headed in the same direction, and enjoy those phases too. Don't just harken back to the glory days of some other time. Make every day a different type of glory day.
Yeah, I think life is a force of nature so much more powerful than our itty bitty human will. Like, we want the foreverness, and this river of life says, yeah, you're not going to get it. The current is strong. You can swim against it, and fucking good luck enjoying that. Good luck realizing you're just going backwards the whole time while you're wearing yourself out. And there's the Zen proverb. I don't know if it's a proverb, but I like using that word. I feel like anything I say after it will be more value. So there's a Zen proverb. I don't even know if it's Zen, that says contentment comes from accepting things as they are without the need for them to be otherwise. So like when we're 49, can we accept like that is at least as beautiful, if not more beautiful, than when we were 29? And then when we're 89, we're maybe a little more shriveled. Maybe don't run as fast, but where's the beauty in that? And I would dare say the beauty's there. The question is, are we acknowledging it? Do we have the awareness for it? Or are we resisting the river of life, trying to make it other than the way it is?
You could spend a whole life, and a lot of people do, when you're younger trying to be older. You're freshman in high school. Man, I can't wait till I'm a senior, and then senior, like, oh man, I just got to get to college. And then in college, even me, when I was in college, I was just so freaked out about what I was going to do when I got out, and like how I was going to make my mark, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, literally could track back my whole life, stressed about some phase that I was eager to get to, where, and robbing myself. And I enjoyed myself along the way, and I learned a lot of lessons. But if I was going to give my old self some advice, just like enjoy the spot that I'm in. At 22, I wasn't ready to own on it and have this thing. I wasn't ready yet. So enjoy that phase, keep learning, but don't beat myself up over it. Like, don't freak out and it's like, oh, I just got to get this. I got to do this, or I got to do that. And I hope, as I get older, I'm not going to go back, oh man, if I was only, 34 again, I can't hit the heavy bag like I used to. And maybe I'm not, just enjoy it. As you said, you said it perfectly eloquently, like the magic in every stage, and just really live that. And then you've lived all the stages of your life. But if you don't, if you're always projecting in the future or the past, you might not have lived at all.
Man, big time. I think just because we're alive doesn't mean we're actually living. I think living is embodiment of the journey, not just like going through the journey unembodied, not being present for our life, not being present with where we're at, who we are, and what's in front of us. And I catch myself deflecting even like in the micro, like on a daily basis, rather than just, I mean, I do the macro too. Like when I'm young, I want to be old. When I'm old, like I wish I was 25 again.
Yeah.
But like in the micro of my day, sometimes like I'll be going through my morning routine. It's like, okay, now I'm doing my walk and I'm already thinking about doing my meditation after the walk. Then I'm
Right.
doing the meditation and now I'm thinking about my creative time.
Totally.
Then I'm in my creative time and now I'm thinking about the workout I'll be doing later. Then I'm in the workout thinking about like calls I have or whatever it is. So when I catch myself doing that, which is freaking all the time, and when I don't catch myself doing it, I'm probably doing it. I'm just not aware that I'm
Yep.
doing it. But there's a paradox. I think when we catch ourselves doing it, that is the doorway into presence. When
Mhm.
we catch ourselves deflecting into the future or the past, we can use that as an opportunity to root into the presence. I think the awareness of how we're losing ourselves is what allows us to find ourselves. And not to get too ultra spiritual, but just to bring a little Eckhart Tolle into this
Mhm.
conversation.
Bring him.
We want to be
He's
legit.
welcome.
We're going to talk about Eckhart
Come
Tolle.
on.
Some of the stuff I've heard him talk about is your primary purpose is always what you're doing right now. So if that's half true, and I like the way I feel
100%.
when I like think about that and live it, like it feels good. So I'm going to use it. So you and I right now, like maybe our primary purpose is to be looking at each other in the eye and to be having this conversation. And maybe the secondary purpose is for this conversation to then be released. Other people listen to it, find their meaning in it. But primary is maybe what we're doing right now, not what we'll be doing 5 minutes from now, not what we were 5 years ago, not what we want to be 5 years from now. And I find it somehow fascinating and shocking how much I need those reminders.
Oh, hell yeah. You ever find yourself in a situation that's so good that you almost start trying to make it worse?
Oh, 100%.
You know, like I've
how
spent
fucked up
my
is
whole
that?
yeah, I've caught myself doing that so many times. Like, this is so fucking good. Let me put some mental program to diminish this, drop this down. And that's again, this is this defense mechanism. Like, man, if life is this good, I'm really going to be scared to death.
Yeah.
You know, so it's almost like this preventative pain action that we're taking, even about life, as one of the drivers of why we're escaping into these programs and not enjoying
Yeah.
it. Because when you're really present, I mean, life is really fucking good. I mean, there's been
For
times,
sure.
and one of the things I think that I love about the plants is they can really help my brain, which is really fucked up and challenging and tangled. And, you know, I appreciate it for what it does, but it
Sure.
also is my greatest tormentor. You know, like the difference between going skiing when I'm just normally skiing, I enjoy skiing. Skiing's great. But then I'm thinking about, you know, this thing that's happening. I'm running programs in my mind. I take a little bit of mushrooms and go skiing. And it's like the greatest experience I've ever had. Like, fuck, the mountains are beautiful. Oh my God, my music sounds so good. The air is so fresh and clean. I'm gliding over snow. This is
Yeah.
incredible. I feel G forces. My body's moving. I'm with my friends. And it's like that amount of time, it's just life is so fucking good.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we're afraid to feel that sometimes. We're afraid to
For
feel how good
sure.
it is because again, we know it's temporary, but fuck that, you know, like find those ways to feel how good it is. Cause then then it puts things in perspective. Then you realize
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like this is what I'm here for. I'm here to really enjoy myself and to really find this experience. And I'm super grateful for the plants for helping give me like a little leg up, like a little boost.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm a kid who's struggling to get onto this ledge, and like mushrooms are like a uncle is like, come on, buddy, you want to get up there? Like I know the fruit roll
Uncle
ups.
Mushroom.
Yeah, I know the fruit roll ups are up there. I know you want to take a bite. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, uncle. You know, and then I'm just feasting on the pleasures of life, and that's been a lesson. And then you learn, you know, that helps you figure out how to get back there and figure that out. And again, this is not me advocating mushrooms. This is me being a toddler with an oversized brain that couldn't figure out how to get on the counter of awareness and needing some help. But that's it, you know, just finding those ways to be fully present and realizing it's okay to feel this good, even if it's not going to happen forever.
Yeah. And when we're done feeling this good, having a peak experience, life is relative, as Einstein brainwashed us all to believe. So after the peak experience, it's going to feel relatively not good. There's a letdown effect, and
Sure.
that too is okay. Like I mean, when I wrote a book, I don't know, finished writing it a while ago, came out a little less while ago to use uncorrect English. The writing process was a peak experience for me. It was a beautiful inward creative journey. And when I finished writing the first draft of the book, I grieved. I
Mhm.
felt legitly depressed for a week because now I was peaked for the few months long writing process. There was just like this beautiful place I'd go to inside. I didn't know how to get there without the writing.
Mm.
And now I don't have that journey. The book is written. Wow, I feel grief. My first instinct was to avoid that feeling. So I noticed this impulse. And the very next day after I finished writing the book, I wanted to start my next book. But then, as the philosopher Ice Cube would say, you got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. So I checked myself and I'm like, all right, that's not coming from a genuine
Yeah.
place of let's energize a new project. That would be coming from a place of trying to avoid what I feel right now. So I surrendered to it. I'm like, I'm going to let myself grieve.
Yeah.
Let myself feel the valley. Like I peaked. Let's feel the valley now. And it's okay. Like what I'm feeling right now, it's the yin and the yang. It's part of the whole picture. And when we don't let ourselves have those peak experiences because we're maybe secretly afraid of the valley, losing the peak experience doesn't last forever, life starts to be very flat.
Mm.
And we all know what a flat line represents.
It's
Like
the
that's
worst. The numbness, the
lifelessness.
grayness. That's the
For
enemy. It's
sure.
not the highs and the lows. It's the nothing. Like the
Absolutely.
void is the scariest part of a psychedelic journey.
Mhm.
Like if you ever encountered the void feels like there's not anything. For me, it was like this muddy brown color, and there's nothing, not a rock, not a demon, not an
Mhm.
angel, not a blade of grass, not a color, nothing. The void. Like that's the enemy. It's not the scary ones where I'm encountering hell and all the minions and like that's still beautiful in a way, but it's the
Mhm.
nothing and that's where we try and put our emotions and things. And another thing I wanted to hark back to is I was talking to Jamie Foxx on the podcast, and
Yeah.
he was describing that exact same thing. He's using the yin and yang symbol and being like, you know, contained within the light, contained within your greatest success is that circle of darkness.
Mm.
Like you cannot separate the two. It's the
It
way the
has to
universe
be.
works. So contained in your finishing the book is that circle of grief and sorrow. And to not
Yeah.
acknowledge it is to just run from the truth. Like it all comes with these different elements contained within your darkness. Your rock bottom is this brilliant circle of light, this lesson, this value that you're going to harness from this pearl of wisdom and strength that you'll be able to take from it. There's a balance, there's a cosmic balance. And that symbol, is really a good one to remind us of those facts. Like, and even for people who win a championship or a Stanley Cup or a Super Bowl, or my mom was a professional tennis player. She talked about it all the time. Win a big tournament, the letdown comes,
For sure.
and it just is. It's like a universal law, like
Yeah.
fucking gravity, or that the earth is flat. You know what I mean? Like universal.
Man, I hate round planets. Aubrey, I fucking hate them.
Yeah. we're a bunch of round earth shills here on this thing. Just taking the party line.
I'm
People are funny.
the round earth shill note.
Yeah.
I love it.
Shit, man. This is fun. This is fun getting with you and hanging with you. I feel like I haven't asked you enough questions, but
And just so you know, I'm cool with that. Like I love, like, please grieve the questions you didn't ask, but I love having a conversation with you.
yeah.
Like you are like, I'm not just trying to flatter you with compliments. You are a very deep, weird person.
Yes, thank you. I'll
You're-
take the weird part for sure.
Oh, for sure. I think normal is the most pervasive disease in our society.
Mhm.
It's a very infectious disease, and it's very contagious.
Yeah.
I think weird it's a gluten-free breadcrumb trail to our authenticity. The reason why our weirdness is defined as weird is because it comes from our unique, authentic self. And I love how you let your authenticity shine and it comes out through your weirdness. And to me, you are a person who explores mystery. There's no other quality that another person that I respect more than he or she who is willing to explore mystery rather than just staying rooted in the coffin of their comfort zone of certainty. So, being able to just talk with you being one of these curious explorers of life is just an absolute thrill. And honestly, I think it'd be a freaking disservice to me. I don't give a crap about anybody listening right now, but it would be a disservice to me. Like, you just ask me a bunch of questions, act like, well, I'm the interviewer. And it's like, okay, now I'll listen to myself say things that I already know.
Yeah. I'm not really good at that
and I'm
interviewer mode anyways, but
you're not. And I think because you're above it
Yeah.
for sure. You're a curious explorer of life, embodying the journey.
as
I
are
love
you,
it.
my friend. And I think for me, one of the most important services that you provide is a little shake for the spiritual materialism, the identity
Mhm.
attachment, a little thing. Because no matter what aspect that is, it is, the one unifying thing between all truly spiritual people is laughter.
Yeah.
Like, do not ever go to a plant medicine ceremony with a shaman who can't laugh.
Mm.
Like, don't fucking do it. Don't do it. Because they're not at the level where they see that this is what it's about. It's about not taking anything too seriously because
Yeah.
everything's all good. No matter what happens, it's all good. You get wrapped up in the seriousness of everything, you haven't reached a level of mastery that I want you to lead me through the other side. And the best ones that I've worked with,
sure.
they laugh the best. They laugh the deepest, from Don Miguel Ruiz to, Don Howard to
Yeah.
Maestro Hamilton to all of these people. Like, their laughter is booming. Maestro Alberto, all the great teachers, Ted Decker, the mentors that I have, the people I learned the most from, we laugh, and that's a
sure.
service that I think you provide and remind people of that. Yeah, if you can't make fun of yourself and realize that this thing is really funny, then you're playing the wrong game.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think laughter, the energy of laughter, it's an alchemist. It
Mhm.
helps us transform. I think and I think the things we need to laugh about the most are the things we take most seriously, the things we feel most offended by, the things we feel most self-identified with,
Yeah.
which means it's a bit of a challenge to get there and laugh at those things, not in a way where we're shaming ourselves, but in a way where we're actually understanding ourselves. And I think when we're laughing at something that, we've held pretty seriously, the laughter is the evidence that the alchemist has taken effect, where we're now separated from what we just thought we were. To me, the distance between what we thought we were and now what we're realizing we are in this
Mhm.
moment, that distance, it requires an emotional reaction because we're like in the moment having an emotional reaction because we just lost ourselves. We lost who we thought we were.
Yeah.
And laughter is an emotional release. It's a form of weeping. We either laugh or we cry. Sometimes it's
You ever
both.
you ever been getting like a shot, like go to the doctor and you have to get a shot or something painful and you just start laughing? Or like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
actually happening. Maybe it's a deep tissue or something and you just start laughing. Like, the choices are scream and cry or laugh, right?
for
And I
sure.
think that's exactly what you're saying. It's like that is how you bridge the gap. I've never thought of it that way, but you're bridging the gap. You're forming that, using the language to bridge the language of feeling and emotion and this to actually bridge the gap from where you were to where you're going. And
Yeah,
it requires something.
for
And
sure.
laughter is a hell of a lot better bridge to travel than the other bridge, which is pain, anger, the dark bridge that goes underneath the surface.
Yeah, I agree. And just one more thought on that. When we're laughing, it probably means we've given ourselves permission to be confused in that space
Yeah.
between who we just let go of and now like who we're realizing we are right now. That space in between is called confusion. And I think it's so great to be confused, so great to allow ourselves to leave our platform of certainty, and laughter is a way we can navigate that confusion. We can be scared as hell of it and then maybe try to avoid it,
Mhm.
or we can be scared as hell of it at some level inside, but use laughter as the levity to help propel us to the other side of the dark woods of the confusion.
Totally.
So, man, if I were a doctor, which I'm not, unless I'm in denial, it wouldn't be funny. Like, I actually am a doctor, but I'm just in denial of it. I'm not a doctor, people. My prescription would be figure out what we get offended about.
Uh-huh.
And can we take Oscar Wilde's words, which are something to the effect of life is too important to take seriously. And I think we are too important to take seriously. So can we look at what we get offended about, which is something we take really seriously, and challenge ourselves to find a way to laugh at it? Whether it's I'm offended when they say Republicans are this, or I'm offended about Trump, I'm offended about Democrats, I'm offended you would question my beliefs, my religion, how dare you? Well, what if we become the one that questions it? And I think when we start questioning it and use laughter as a way to embody the questioning of it, it's not us saying this idea, this sense of self doesn't matter anymore. It's not saying that. It's not saying it's not important. It's just saying it's not me. It may still have a very appropriate place in my life, but I'll realize at a feeling level it's not me. And honestly, some of the things won't have an appropriate place in our life. They've got to be composted and become something better.
And for those of you who are trying to figure that out, a good place to start would be to go to JP's YouTube page. Start looking at videos. And the one that you're like, ooh, God, he did it. Oh, no. Because you know that you're going to show up in that fucking video. That's the one you need to watch. You need to watch that. And then at the end, you know, that laughter will make you more authentic. It'll make you more aware of these little delusions that you've been under, this little attachments, and then transmute it, bridge that gap with the laughter as you've done, and you'll be a better person for it. So that's a hell of a good place to start. Because I even you know, you have an ayahuasca video on there, and even as I was clicking it, I was like, God damn it. I knew I was a character in that video at some point in my life. I was like, God damn it. Here we go.
Feel the burn.
Feel the burn. Feel the burn. But then of course, you know, you go through it and then it makes you more you, just as you said. So it's a huge service that you're providing. But I'm sure at the same side, you find some people who just don't like it. Who get don't find the humor and get mad. You must have people get mad at you.
For sure. And you know, I'm delusional as hell. So like, let's take with a grain of salt this big rationalization I'm about to puke out just to justify how I am. But I would never want to rob someone from their emotional experience. So if someone gets offended by a video, I look at that as something therapeutic. I don't think it's possible for us to be offended about something that we're not insecure about.
Yep.
And I think what we really get insecure about is when we think we're something that we're not.
Yep.
Because like that's so fragile. Of course we're insecure about it. Like it's not going to hold up. So if someone gets offended by a video, I actually do believe, and this is where I might be getting delusional, I actually do believe it's therapeutic for someone to make a connection to that insecurity, even if they don't swim in it vulnerably, even if they touch the insecurity and then rebel against it with the energy of outrage and anger, at least they touched it. And I'm okay with that.
That's a beautiful way to look at it, because that's the higher perspective of all of this. I mean, I think sometimes we're so scared of pain or discomfort, you know, we don't want to tell to bring it back to another, and we don't want to tell our lover thing because it might hurt their feelings. So we hold it back and rob them of the ability to confront that emotion and confront those demons that they're own facing, because we think that, oh, we got to placate everything. We got to be like this overbearing mama bear character or papa bear where we take care of every need and there's no pain. You know how shitty ayahuasca would be as a medicine if it didn't drive you straight to the heart of darkness? Like that's the whole fucking point. It'd be ineffective. It wouldn't do anything. Like it takes you to the shit you don't want to see the most.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what, you know, it's not our job to just placate everything and just nerf the world and make everything, you know, so that nobody's feelings get hurt. You know, fuck that.
Feelings. I love that. To me, we're actually doing a disservice and we're being selfish.
Yep.
When we're nerfing the world, placating it all. And I've done a lot of that selfish stuff. Like I'm not going to voice real perspectives because I selfishly want everybody to like me. I don't want someone to feel offended and of course project that onto me and they think they don't like me. even though deep down inside, of course, they like me. So actually, it's been making my videos have been a real journey. Like I started off just doing comedy videos within like the spiritual genre, which was cool. And I still value it. But then that became the safety zone. And then, the creative muse was calling me to make videos about issues that are more directly related to the human heart. And then just recently I released a video called Gun Control and like talk about like that's not going to make everybody like me, but the creative muse was tickling me.
Dope.
Like I need to,
that's great.
I need to voice my voice on some of the dogmatic thinking around this. I've got to shine the light on it the way I do through what I think is one of my gifts, sharing perspectives through the language of satirical humor. So I actually remember I texted my assistant, Karen, I said that gun video is going to be released tonight at 9:00. Just so you know, we're going to get some heat coming in. And I want you to know we're not reacting to any of it.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of heat came in it. People, shit hit the fan for some people. And that was a fire for me. Like I had to sit in the flames and be okay, with the part of me that says these people who are outraged don't like me. They don't like me. Then of course I have maybe the angel on the other shoulder reminding me of like, okay, if they're outraged, they're getting in touch with something they need to get in touch with. They don't feel secure with it, and that's okay. But to me, the greatest service I can be for the world, and that I think a lot of people in the helping profession can be for the world, is when we fucking challenge people rather than just reinforcing comfort, complacency, the Nerf world, as you called it.
Yeah.
No offense, Nerf. Please don't sue the shit out of us.
Yeah, no, I think that's right on. So it's another thing that Eckhart Tolle brings up as well, is like when you feel the compression of the ego, when you feel that, like breathe into it, like not try to immediately circumvent, not try to dodge it, like when you feel that, like breathe into it. And that's a practice that I take when I have those, those comments that are just like out of the blue trying to cut you down. And I try to like, oh, that one landed.
Yeah.
Weird. That one, I wonder why that landed. All right, let me breathe into the spot that landed. Sit in the fire, to use your words. And then you grow stronger from that rather than flaming back out like, oh, you're going to burn me, motherfucker. I'm going to burn you down. It's a firefight now, bitch.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this in all caps. So that'll really teach you.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. But do you go in and do you read the comments?
It's I never read all the comments. There's just too many of them.
Yeah, for sure.
But I like to read some of them, and especially I'll read the early ones that come out in a video. But like so
if you're going to talk shit to JP,
do it quick.
Yeah, jump on that right away. If you want him to feel the fire,
for sure.
Top 5 comments on the video.
With the gun control video, because that was like a new height of a cliff I jumped off of when my assistant texted me. I was sitting in the movie theater watching Wonder Woman with my lady.
Nice.
Divine Feminine. Man, I support it. All you masculine, whether you think you're a man or not, all you masculine identified people, we need the Divine Feminine. I will stand by that. That's my running platform for President 2020. So, but I felt my phone buzzing as my assistant texting me, letting me know, like, there's some comments you need to see, JP. And I let her know, like, I can't look at comments. One, like, I'm with my girl right now. That's the
watching
priority.
Wonder Woman.
Absolutely. Eckhart Tolle would say, JP, the purpose of your life is to be with your woman right now.
Uh-huh.
But like, I was already processing enough fire. It's like, I need to digest this initial fire of what it even meant to me to release the video before I can encounter other flames. So like, I need, a few hours to breathe right here, leaning into the discomfort, not away from it. And I don't think a person's ever been hurt by feeling the emotional discomfort that their body generates. I think we hurt ourselves all the time trying to avoid it.
Yeah.
Lean away from it. So nonetheless, like, I needed a moment. I needed half a day before I could read any comments.
That's fucking really wise. And that's something that I've failed on before. Like, and I've pushed people around me into failure because like, oh yeah, go for it. You know, like do the iboga. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Like, no, like, no, not yet. You know, like that's too much fire. It's too much fire at one point. Like a workout doesn't make you stronger. The recovery from the workout makes
For
you stronger.
sure.
The negative emotions that you feel isn't what makes you stronger. It's coming out the other side successfully. Whereas if you pound yourself into complete obliteration, that may take you even longer to recover. It's just like overtraining. You can't overtrain the psyche, just like you can't overtrain the body. And so having that knowledge of pacing, I think is really a brilliant caveat to that Stoic philosophy of the obstacle is the way. Well, don't give yourself too much fucking obstacle that you get smushed.
Absolutely.
You know?
To me, what I'm hearing you say is challenge yourself, but don't overwhelm yourself. I think there's a humbleness that's needed, the humbleness of the wise warrior who's not afraid of the battlefield, not afraid to feel his or her feelings. But the wise warrior also has the humbleness that says, I only have so much capacity. So the wise warrior might look at the army of 1,000 people and say, that's too much for just me right now. But the wise, courageous warrior might look at one or two enemies, if you will, and say, that looks like a challenge.
Yeah.
I'll take on those two, but I'll need to develop more before I can do 1,000. That might be challenging for me 10 years from now, but it's overwhelming to me now. And I think we need that humbleness rather than this delusional sense of grandiosity. Like, hey, I'm a superhero. It's like, yeah, I mean, we're half superhero, half human.
Yeah.
We got to respect the human limitations that we have while not being limited by the limitations.
So what would you say, what advice would you give to people then who find themselves in a challenge that is beyond a challenge and actually is overwhelming? You know, something that man, I didn't choose this, but this is more than I would have ever, asked for or brought on, and you feel overwhelmed. Like, what would be your advice for that person in that situation?
If it's a situation that, the prefrontal cortex of that person would discern, like, this situation is somehow like important to me. Like, it might be like a family, like I have 5 kids and I'm overwhelmed. It's not something that you would judge. Like, I'll cut this out of my life. Some situations maybe, but so when we're in a place where we're overwhelmed and it's still, there's purpose being connected with it. And I think that's when we need to ask for help. It's when we need to realize, like, there's a reason why there's 7 billion other people on this earth. We need our tribe, and we need to get over our self-righteousness that is afraid of asking for help. I think being able to reach is so courageous, to be able to reach and say, I need help, whether that's support, whether that's physical action, whether it's an ear. I need you to hear my feelings. I need you to help me with this. I need you to understand me. So, man, I think that's when we reach out.
And that's a hard thing to do sometimes. It's
in those
moments, it's where you want to reach out the least.
I've got the disease of pride.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember I was explaining to you earlier when we were just chatting, some of the more challenging times I had were, about a month ago, just a lot of things coinciding with pressures. And I felt overwhelmed. I felt overwhelmed by the things that I had going on. And I had people who were right on the periphery who could have been massively helpful. Massively helpful. I didn't talk to anybody. Nope, didn't talk to anybody. I mean, Whitney, I would like talk to my partner, but not to like the real mentors and experts who could have really lended a hand with some of the heavier issues that I was going to. And until finally, what triggered me totally flipping it wasn't anything externally that changed. It was a mindset change. And that was me actually going out and hanging with one of those guys, this guy, Ted Decker, who's been on my podcast before, amazing guy. And just sitting with him, over the course of an hour and a half, I felt at one point like I was, going to cry. I did cry. At one point I was going to vomit. At one point I was going to, and the rest of the time I was laughing. And then at the end of that, it just shifted my perspective enough. And I've been riding, paradise for the last 10 days largely, with the external situation being the same. But really, I couldn't have done it, without some help. But it took me, it took me kind of holding that, bearing that, suffering for long enough till I realized, like, all right, now let me reach out and do that. I should have just done it sooner. But again, it's that thing like, I got this, everyone.
For sure. We have to experience enough suffering while we're avoiding what we imagine will be the suffering we'll encounter by asking for help, so that we can then become willing to experience the suffering of actually asking for help, which my experience is usually it's not really suffering.
No,
it's like fun. A relief.
Yeah, it was totally. Well, shit, man, this has been a fucking blast.
Oh,
one of my
for me
favorite
too,
podcasts.
brother.
I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And thank you
of
for
course.
being you and doing all that you do for the world and all that you do for yourself.
Thank you, brother. Likewise, man.
Sure.
Likewise. Really appreciate the gifts that you provide. So speaking of which, tell people where they can find your awesomeness.
Best way to find his awesomeness. Social media, all my handles are Awaken with JP. I'm always posting videos on Facebook, YouTube, and the usual spots. So that's a good place to find me or to avoid me if you find me incredibly offensive.
And then your book, How to Be Ultra Spiritual.
Yeah, How to Be Ultra Spiritual, 12 and a half Steps to Spiritual Superiority. It should be in all the usual spots, Amazon, and, steal it from a friend, whatever you want to do.
Dope. Awesome, man. Thank you for coming by. Much love, everybody. Peace.